What is up, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of Fly Tying Friday. I know it's been a minute. Apologies. Clearly I'm a little bit congested, so apologies for that. My nasally voice might get annoying throughout this video, so you can't say I didn't warn you. Today we're going to be tying, aside from a balance leech, probably my favorite streamer pattern, which is the Sculpzilla. Super simple fly. I mean, it's not that simple, actually. This is probably one of the more complex flies that I've tied on the channel so far, but super effective fly. It's got articulation and it goes to a rear shank, which actually will allow it to swim. The fly is actually just tied on a hook shank, and honestly, I just break a lot of, I'll just find some crappy hooks somewhere, and if they're cheap, I'll buy them. And you want to be pretty large, and I'll actually just break the rear end of the hook off, and then I'll just tie straight onto that. But this is going to be the first time the materials are going to be listed down below, just because of laziness on my part that I haven't done that. I apologize for that. But I'm starting to reach out and try and look for some companies that are distributors of fly tying goods so that I can link their stuff below and not have it going to Amazon, because I think it's lame that they pay a 20% commission on everything purchased from Amazon. But just today, these links are going to be put down below through Amazon. This fly's going to just have a stinger hook, a hook shank, rabbit strip, and then I use some Snake River fly material right here. This is their hydro hackle. This stuff's super dope. Obviously, you're going to get a closer up look once you start tying it. But yeah, we're about to get started. I got my Fly Caught coffee here, which is actually a funny, it's a fly fishing branded coffee company. The guys reached out to me and asked me to taste it and give it a little review. They know I like coffee, and I'm a black coffee drinker, so this stuff is still super hot. This cup does too well of a job, I would say, most of the time, to be honest with you. But yeah, the coffee's really good. They have this is a PMD Panama. They have a Hopper House blend, and then like a Stonefly Sumatran blend, which is just kind of like a dark roast, and the Hopper roast is kind of their medium roast. But it's actually really, really good coffee, and they send me some of it, and wanted me to do a little review for you guys, so thumbs up on that. But let's get started, and let's tie this bug up real quick. Okay, so we're going to get started on this fly. Like I said, it has just a small, this is like a size 8, actually this is a size 6, Daiichi red stinger hook. I have a broken hook shank from like a 4.0, or from like a size 4 or a size 6. Oh, I know, you need some light. There we go, that should be better. Basically just the shank of a shorter, or of a longer hook, like a streamer hook. And then what I'm going to use for this connection is fly line backing, your choice. I usually go pretty heavy on that just because there's no reason for me to use anything lighter, and they're all pretty cheap, pretty cost friendly. But yeah, so we're gonna get started with this fly. Basically, you work from the back up as you would with most flies, but all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna attach this hook. I usually just tie a lot of these patterns with just like a heavy white thread. I just tie so many streamers with this thread that I don't really have a need to, and you can color it if you want to. I don't really think it makes that much of a difference. But this fly is typically, I tie it in a tan or an olive. Today's going to be tan, and our materials are just going to be some rabbit strip. I have some whiting schlappen right here. This stuff's freaking sweet. And then we're going to have a little bit of red schlappen, and this is actually going to be a collar on the head. This is just some Spirit River UV red schlappen. And then we're going to have a little bit of like an olive matuka or like an olive grizzly plume. And basically we're just going to be adding all that in to add a little bit of contrast. And then finally this Snake River Fly Hydro Hackle. This stuff is sweet. I'm going to link this stuff below. I tie almost every single streamer that I tie with this stuff. And then just a little bit of like red crystal flash. So let's get started on this real quick and get it all put together. First off, you're going to want to... I shouldn't have done this yet. I messed up. First things first is we're going to take like about a 6 to 7 inch strip of our Dacron braid, which is just fly line backing for most people, but you can use whatever you want. Just make sure it's strong and you don't have to worry about it. Getting it through is kind of a pain if you don't thread it, but as you can see that just went right through. I'm going to take this off, and all I'm going to do is I pinched this in half, pushed it through, Now through the loop that is made in this just from being pinched, I'm going to take that loop right here, and I'm going to go put this hook right through the loop on the bottom side. And when I pull this through, it's now connected just like that. No knot, no nothing. It's just looped through. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to attach these pieces of braid. I'm going to tie them in like I would just any sort of like articulation wire. Okay, so I got that. I'm going to start my thread. These can be kind of a pain in the butt while you're tying it, but whatever. If you want to tie a bunch of these, I would recommend threading through a bunch of this braid at once on a bunch of hooks. That way you can just kind of become a little bit more efficient with it. So I'm just going to lay down a little bit of a thread base real quick. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my, this is like a golden brown, gold variant grizzly rabbit strip. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a nice piece of this, and this is all kind of cattywampus. So I'm going to, once it gets wet it doesn't really matter, so I'm just going to cut some of this right here. And I'm going to cut myself, so this is essentially going to be the length of the entire fly. So I'm going to cut myself, as you can see right here, about a 3-inch piece of this rabbit. So here's this rabbit. As you can see, it's got a nice barring on it as well. If I wet my finger, I can actually get this to go the same direction, just like that. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to tie in on the rear of this, basically only about a 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch. I'm going to grab my thread, or not, sorry, thread. I'm going to grab my feather or my fur. I'm going to wet my finger and I'm going to separate it so I don't trap any, as you can see, just like that, right? I'm going to take this and just about midway up the hook, I'm going to tie this in nice and tight. Really, really tight wraps. Just like that. And then I'm going to pull my rest of my fibers back this way, right over it. And then I'm going to push it back, put some wraps in front, whip finish. I'll usually do 2, and then I'll add a nice little dab of glue. I had a glue spill the other day that I didn't realize happened, so I spilled super glue all over my desk and ripped an entire portion of my desk painting off, which is fine because it was a $30 desk. Add a little dab of that glue, and that's essentially just going to make this thing completely indestructible. And that's the back half of our fly right there. So I'm going to take this off. This part can be kind of annoying just because I don't have a jaw that's necessarily made to hold just a shank. So I actually have to tighten my my vise up quite a bit to do this properly. So I'm going to basically just pinch this shank in. You want to make sure that the shank's actually flat, or the eye is flat and not turned on its side. This is just my preference, but first off I need to add a cone head. And this fly right here I tie with tungsten cone heads, this is a 5.5 millimeter tungsten cone head. Pretty big, pretty heavy, and depending on the situation, I will add some lead wraps to this as well. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take some of this lead. This is .035 lead wire. So I'm going to take this. Here, I'll show you real quick. .035 lead wire. I'm going to take some of this, and you usually don't need to worry about cutting this with your scissors because it's so soft, you're not going to really damage them. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to wrap this up my hook shank. I like to get a good number of wraps into this, so I'm going to do that right there. I'm going to twist this to break it, and I'm going to shove it up underneath the cone, and that's going to secure that cone in place. And then this little tag end on the back side I can just wrap up with my finger because it's such large lead. And then I'm going to push it down so that it's not going to catch and cause a pain in my butt. Okay, so this is essentially the base of the front of the fly. So I'm going to tie in my thread. This thread's nice because I can just break it. I'm going to break that, and then I'm going to basically tie in some wraps right against this so it's not going to slide, and then I'll hold it in place. If you put too tight of thread wraps on this, it'll actually separate the lead, and we don't want that. So I'm going to tie this all the way back just like this. And now comes the connection of the articulation, right? So we have our braid right here. We have our hook and our rabbit strip. So what I want to do is I want to hold this rabbit strip. If I want it to be as long as the strip, to the full length of the fly, just like that, right? So as you can see, that's going to make a profile. To me, that's going to be a little bit long for how I want this fly to look. So I'm going to pull it up just a tiny bit right there. So I can now see that this, I need to connect right around here. So I'm going to tie in this braid, give it really nice, tight, secure wraps this way, Oops. Just move my whole vise. And as you can see, this thing will kind of pull around as it goes. It's kind of a pain in the butt in that way. Okay, so I have that tied in one direction, and now I'm going to fold these tags back and wrap back down it there. And as you can see, I've actually created a pretty decent taper too that is pretty even with the lead. So you're not even going to really notice that lump there. Okay, and so if you ever looked at a sculpin, they have a really, really translucent white belly. And this fly, we want this to be a very realistic pattern. We tie this with this articulation just so it looks way, way good looking. So basically what I do with this part, is I'll take my Snake River Fly Hydro Hackle, and they have this, I don't know the name of the color, then it's not like labeled, but this is basically just like a minnow color, just like a silver coloration here. And what I'll do is I'll cut a little strip of this off, and as you can see, it's a really cool material, pretty short fibers, really, really flashy, which is good for this underbelly. I'm going to take this, I'm going to tie it in, and I'm going to wrap it back, and then wrap up. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I'm preening these fibers back with every wrap. And this is going to be pretty ugly just in this initial stage here, so I'm going to take these, I'm going to keep preening as I wrap back, just like this. Just making sure that I'm forcing them to go the direction that I want them to go. Like that. And I only really want those to go around the back half of this fly because I have a lot of material to add to the front with some of these schloppens to wrap up. So I'll tie that off. I'll cut that. And this material is kind of crazy. You can actually use a comb or some sort of a like Velcro on this. And these fibers are actually... you can fray them out. I don't know if you can see that these are frayed at the tips, but they'll actually fray out, and you can turn this into like almost like a game changer style body where it just gets super full. For this particular application, I don't really care to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet my finger, and I'm going to start folding these little, whatever you want to call them, little legs or fibers down. I'm going to take my rabbit strip, and now I'm going to pull this so that it's tight up to the front of the fly, just like that. Okay, and I'm going to wrap this back a little ways. And I don't want to crowd the head of this just yet, so I'm actually going to wrap back a little bit further. And then I'm going to cut this as opposed to just wrapping down this piece of leather. So I'm going to cut this real quick. Just like that. And now this is nice and secured in place. It's not going anywhere. And as you can see now, we have a good profile on our sculpin, right? So it's just a long, skinny, and now we're going to start building up a head that's going to be bulky and plume up in the water to create that large pectoral fin and larger head of this fly. So the next material we're going to use is just kind of this tan schloppin right here. And you want to get a pretty good fiber of it that's going to have some nice, you want it to be pretty big but not too big, if that makes sense. Like this is way too large right here, but you want it, this will work perfectly. So we're going to take this piece right here, and as you can see, we got some nice long webby fibers like that, nice barring on it. So I'm going to take this, and these fibers kind of get a little too short for me right here, so I'm going to break it there, throw that tip away, and then I'm going to clear off a tiny bit to tie this in. So as you can see, I just cleared a little bit there at the tip. Now I'm going to tie this piece in nice and tight up here, like that, and try not to trap any of your other fibers. And now I'm going to wrap these materials up, and as you can see, it's going to start to build a nice, thick, mottled front to this fly, right? So we got a nice color there. Okay, so that's about 4 good size wraps right there. So I'm going to now tie this piece off. I'm going to cut it. And now you can see we got a nice collar here at the front of the fly. So now I'm going to actually preen this back again, and I'm going to tie it back and kind of push those back down. And now we're going to add a little bit, like one decently sized plume of like an olive marabou. So as you can see, these are nice long fibers. This is exactly what I'm looking for right here. It's a nice light olive. I don't know if you can see that quite as well as I'd like. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece, just like I would on the balanced leech. I'm going to take this piece, I'm going to tie in the tip, just like that. Okay. And I'll be able to get maybe a wrap and a half out of this. Not a ton. Oh, unless it breaks, then I will need to retie it in. So I'm going to retie this piece in, and it's okay if that piece of that other part's still there. Okay, so I'm going to tie this in, and again, I'm really only going to be able to get 1 to maybe 2 wraps of this. And this is just going to add a little bit of contrast of color. So I'm going to wrap that up, making sure I'm preening the fibers back as I wrap it so that nothing is getting trapped and it's going the direction that I want. Okay, so just like that. And then this last little bit, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of red schlappen, just like this. Pretty basic material. And I want to just add kind of a wounded bait fish coloration to this. Okay, so I'm going to take that. I'm going to clip this tip off. A reaction thing, that's what it is. It's something that's going to cause a reaction. That's what I'm trying to say. Geesh. Okay, so I'm going to tie this in and hope it doesn't break again. And this I'm going to just do 1 full wrap with that, just like that. Straight up, just like that. I'm going to preen these fibers around again. And that'll actually just break right off just like that. Okay, so now I'm going to pull these back. And I'm going to finish the fly. So I'm going to take these fibers, make sure they're all going the direction that I want. Just like that. Got 1 errant fiber that won't cool it. We'll get them in line. Okay, there we go. And now I'll just whip finish. You just give a couple of those. And then this is where having a really good thin super glue comes in really handy. Because all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to add a quick dab of this glue right at the head of this. And basically that's just going to soak all the way down to the core of this fly and just essentially make it completely indestructible. And that right there is a super simple sculpin pattern. I need to stop saying super simple. All my other flies are simple. This one's not that simple. That's a lot of steps that went into that. But it's a very effective sculpin pattern, and it's one that I have the utmost confidence on any size fish that I will hook with this thing. Having a stinger changes any articulation in general. It changes the way that a fish can spit your hook. So if you just think about having like a standard hook shank, right? So just for all intents and purposes, here's a big hook. You guys will be able to see real well. Okay. So this is a large saltwater hook. A fish eats this, right? Whatever angle I'm pulling on my line, as you can see, moves the entire hook. So if the fish turns and goes a direction and I'm pulling on the line, there's a chance that I could pop that right out. The beauty of an articulation in a streamer, and this is why even a lot of my small streamers are articulated. If I hook a fish here, right, he's hooked like this, and I pull any direction, basically that hook is just staying put in the same spot regardless of where I'm pulling. And in my experience, there has been a great increase in fish caught with that method, or with this tying method. So yeah, so give those a try. I'm going to have all the materials linked below. I'm going to have some of this fly caught coffee linked below as well. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and share and subscribe to the channel. It's the best thing you can do to support what I'm doing, and I really enjoy being able to do this and teach you guys, whether I'm teaching you or not, maybe just entertain you. But thanks for watching, guys, and actually, the video after this goes live, maybe 2 videos after this, we're actually going to be fishing this exact pattern on a river, fishing for some big brown trout. This fly really produced for me a couple days ago on some really large fish, and me and my buddy Josh, who just got back from Alaska, are going to go back. He was with me in the Pyramid Lake trip, but we're going to go back to that spot and try and find some big fish with this fly. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.